the virtue of wisdom is linked with the kidney organs. So the kidney is the water. Of course, in Huangdi Neijing, their Yellow Emperor mentioned that it's associated with heaven as cold, associated with earth as the water. So they're in the body, it's stored essence, body essence. That's why we call Jing. But they're also in charge of the bone. So the body essence will provide the bone marrow. And then the bone marrow to nourish the brain. But the brain actually, in Chinese medicine, is the container as the sea to collect the bone marrow. So that's why always we said when your Jing quite strong, your brain is good. But when the people getting old, they forgot things, and then they're dementias because they deteriorate on that. So that's why with the emotion part and the conscious part is the willpower. So you can see the kidney, of course, if you have very strong kidney, like normally you jump, when you're young, you're no fear, you just jump. So that's why the kidney also associated the fear. So if the kidney weak, people have much more fear. They say, oh no, I cannot do that. So that's why old people say, oh, you cannot do that, you cannot do that. It's because the kidney weak, the fear much stronger. Young people say, oh, it doesn't matter, we can do that, because the kidney qi is strong. So that's partly why we need to nourish the kidney energy, because there's the associated with the cool, with the winter. So one of the reasons to hold the kidney qi is should be in the cold area rather than too hot. So you can see the people living in a very cold area have a much more longer lifespan because the kidney restored more. So on the virtual part, we said, and then the kidney is associated with the wisdom. So it's linked with the Dao Jing that said, the superior De and the Dao is like water. Because their flow, they're always going lower. So that's why the kidney is much more reflect if you are function on the wise part. So of course you just naturally humble and also much more put yourself in the lower place, and much more fluid means the character you don't you're not acting as a selfish. That I'm the one, you're all kind of to do that for me. But the much more go with the flow, with what needed. And also no dispute means they don't really fight. They don't really try to compete. Say I'm better, I'm get more. So that's why that is the very powerful virtue in the five virtue, because that's the reflect or illustrate what is Dao is about. So that's why lots of many poets and the description always talking like a Dao, like water. That's why associate, because the kidney acting quite powerful function to hold the body energy and then to hold the life force. And then because they have this kind of a energy, because we're all on that, so that's why that energy happened in the Dao Jing. They always said, when you not push or when you not try to do it, you are the biggest and the best doer. Which make lots of people confused that if you're not doing, how could you not get a success? It's in a way because you not do it, but you go with a flow. For example, if you flow with nature rhythms, so you get up in the morning, you rest, and it seems like you not try to against that. You do it, you fight with. So that's why your health much better. You have more longevity. But you try to fight, said, the sun say down, okay, I'm become more brighter. It's like competition with nature. That's what a lot of people do it, even without realize they do it. So it's like a human, I can do anything. My body listen to me, and whatever I want to function, they should follow me. So that's very self-centered. So that's it's affected, and then the kidney very strongly. So that's part of the, we will see in the human body is 75% of water, the earth as well. The earth covers 75%. So we are much more as water. So that's why how can we managing this water? So because the water, it need to be need to keep moving and then peacefully, and then that's why the harmonious nourishing sense, and also they can receive the information. Of course, there's lots of research, and the water have a memory, and the water hear the voice, and then get the signature of the writing, and then they change the crystal patterns. So that's all showing the kidney have a function. They can mobilized and then receiving and then release the information. So that's one of the reasons they're very wise. So they can take the information. So that's apparently why. So to keep the body balance on the water is quite essential. If we were dehydrated, because we see so many people have a headache when they wake up in the morning. So they cause the brain damage, cause a heart problem, because the water gradually dry up because the burns. That's why in the Dao Jing they were said, when you soft, when you're young, and you're not to look very strong, but you have much more life force. But when you're dry, when you're stiff, and your life going to break, just like a tree. The young tree, whatever, they flow with wind, they don't broken because they got plenty of water. But if the water shortage, so that's why they get dry, you very easy break. That's you can see in the everyday life. While there's so much older people have bone fractures, but very little young people, unless young people doing very, very heavy sport and have a crash. So that's partly how could physically maintain the water, maintain the essence, Jing. So it's very important because they can be burned out very quick. So you drink the wine, and then you're just against the nature flow, and then the over kind of sex and all of that, and then sweat, and then and actually emotionally exhausted also can cause. There are lots of people have a night sweat because they cannot sleep, so that's why the water cannot hold. So that is all reflect on that part. So the other very important phenomenon I want to mention that the dehydrations become big issues on the health. I was told by the family doctor GP in England. They said it's 90%, even 95% people in the whole England dehydrated. I was quite surprised. I said, oh, no wonder I never feel thirsty in the morning, but now I feel thirsty when I wake up. So that's why we did design for 4 times per hour so that people drink in the morning, because that's the time the body can really receive. But on the other hand, we need to recognize the reason why people drink water. So it's partly because we said kidney essence nourishing the bone marrow. So the brain is the vast sea to restore the bone marrow. Of course, nowadays, the value system on the society is about how much you can talk, how much you can think. And everything associated with how clever you can talk, how much you talk. So that's why the wisdom now, we want to have a clarity here. Wisdom word in Chinese called Zhi Hui. Because even in the Chinese for the 5 virtue, they call it Zhi. Actually, Zhi Hui is 2 characters as 1 vocabulary to describe the yin-yang part of their wisdom and knowledge. So, okay, Zhi means acquiring knowledge, which you learn from when you were born afterwards.
Acquired knowledge.
Acquired knowledge means you learn afterwards. You learn
after birth.
After birth. So the Hui is naturally born, kind of a soul awareness. Innate, yes. It's kind of innate, the wisdom. So therefore, Zhi Hui, there's 2 words. Lots of people either translate knowledge or translate as wisdom. So actually, Zhi Hui, in that sense, is I have a yin and yang. Have a one is innate. They were born, have this kind of a spiritual enlightenment within. They're just already there. And their Zhi means you have to learn the lots of knowledge in the lifetime to accumulate. But interestingly, we can see the society now so much emphasize about the knowledge and the intellectual part, because Zhi is about how good you talk, how much you think, how much knowledge you accumulate, you can describe by the language. But Hui is much more linked with the deep sense of the wisdom, but doesn't have much language. It's like a inspiration, intuition. Just come out, which which they have a character. The only that wisdom come out when your knowledge or your mind quiet. So that's why lots of people very creative, very wise, they meditate a lot, and then they make their mind quiet, and then you find them much more wise, and they speak really from heart. If they say something, just like a Dao Jing, they're very little words. Each word weight tons of heavy meaning and very profound, rich information. So that's why, in this part, in Dao Jing, they're talking that why people lost the Zhi, means lost the wisdom, is because they put too much about the knowledge in front of it. Wisdom. So because they can quickly react and quickly hear and quickly learn, and then just and too much expression and too much go into detail, and then to show off how much you understand, how independent, how smart you are. So that's why you lost the real deep wisdom, because in Dao Jing they describe when your Zhi means when your intellect in charge, so you're suppressed your wisdom. So the only when your wisdom come out means your intellect need to be dropped. So that's why in Dao Jing they also mention, that's why the big wise sage looks like stupid. Because they're not quick answer you, they're not quickly speak, they're not give your immediately concept, a quick answer as clarity as what your mind satisfy, because they are They look stupid because they don't react. They're very slow. They react something else when you ask them. They react the other sense. It looks like, wow, that's not logical. You need not answer my questions. You're not quick. You are so, but because they are intellect dropped. So the wisdom in charge. So the wisdom doesn't want to show how fast, how much concept you hold. It doesn't matter to them. Because the wisdom is much more you understand how things deeply is, how the heaven, how the different dimension operate on the deep level within that. So something you think is that actually is because the other things. But this kind of, it doesn't logical linearly and light up as ordinary people think. So that's why the kidney, if it gets very strong, so they are, I just want to describe that very, very, very clear this, because why the kidney deteriorate, and then so there's no bone marrow, no clarity, and then swamped by the information above the knowledge. For example, you can see why the earth is full of the war and full of the trouble, because they elected the president and depends on how their speech.
How well they can talk.
How well they talk. So we really need to have a wise people come from heart. This is like a heart in charge, and every whole body will peace. Heart in charge, and the country will be in peace. But if you let the intellect in charge, there's no heart. They could be leading far away from the kindness. Not kind. So that's why the war zone, and that's why the disharmonious everywhere. It's because that's why Dao Jing on the first chapter said, look, when the people and then try to use the intellect to lead, they drop the Dao and then they're stupid. I was quite surprised. I said, ooh, stupid. Because I always said, oh, I'm slow talk, I'm slow thinking, lots of concept I don't understand. Maybe I'm stupid. Later I said, oh, no wonder why you practice Qigong so much. And then when they listen to people's talk, you got to go back to your heart. You find you're speechless because you don't really feel there's need to be response like that way. Or you can feel there's a compete, so how clever this person or whatever. So you just don't really want to join that. So that's why I just want to see the whole world if it function like that. So that's why the endless computation above the intellectual. So that's why you can see there how well you talk, and then you will get a resource. You get money and the funding. So that's why people pursue more talk well, and then they can occupy large resource. And then that means it's not based on the heart. It's not based on the wisdom. So that's why the kidney need to be good energy and nourishing and the body, and then nourishing the wisdom part. So to be able to follow the heart. So because if we were talking internal alchemy, the ancient Taoist, there's one major practice by the almost end, because you've got to accumulate your kidney Jing first, and then you open your heart to cultivate, and then later on the actions about how to communicate in between your heart and the kidney. So that means you got to listen to the wise leader, which doesn't talk much, and then your kidney Jing to acting on that, and then use the knowledge to serve the wisdom. So that's partly what we really emphasize. The virtue of the wisdom in the kidney is above to emphasize the real Tao is no fight, no dispute, and selfish, and then to be able to consistently make your decision. It's like willpower. So when you know the good stuff which will contribute for your soul development and also for the earth, so therefore you consistently to practice to make sure the wise light within from in will be shining up, rather than accumulate lots and lots of knowledge and then totally blocked your inner light. So that's why that's the wisdom of the kidney, which is quite interesting. People think that it should be belongs to brain, but why we were working on the root. The root is the kidney Jing. The Jing nourish that, and if the Jing is clean, so that's why they nourish the brain in a much better adjustment. So that's partly why we just said if we are governing our body and the country with wisdom rather than intellect, so the earth and the country and the body will be much more harmonious and peace. So that's why we can reflect how can we contribute to the human health, and then when we were healthy to put that root right, and then we will be able to help in the earth. So yeah, that's why we will reflect how is sage, because the kidney is so strong. They listen to their heart, they follow the Dao, and in that's the 4 different type of people. The first one is immortal, because they are completely with the Dao, not fight, and then eventually they can living as long, because they can master yin yang, master the 5 elements, and then they can live as long as they wish. So it's a great dream for ordinary people, because there are lots of people, the big fear is death. So if there can be possible, and then beyond life and death. So the ancient and then sage already is ancient, immortal already did that. So that's why you can see there's the great wisdom we need to pursue and let the intellect job done to let that great and let wisdom comes out. That's the kidney.